Okay, hi, Dr. Wilmot. I am here to interview you. I got a little bit of information about you, and I would just like to just get to know who you are, what you do, and alongside with that, how you got to where you are. So, I'll be asking you some questions and just answer them to the best of your ability.
Awesome.
Okay, so the first question is, can you describe your current role as a dean of students and what a typical day looks like for you?
Thank you. That's a great question. It's funny because I met with a group of students the other day, and that's what I was asked. They were like, what does a typical day look like for you? And my answer to that every time I get asked that question is I don't have a typical day. I don't have a typical day because when it comes to being the dean of students, every day is very different. So there could be a day that I go in and I'm dealing with the death of a student. That puts everything to the back burner, and I have to focus on how to support the campus community, help them move on and heal, and most importantly, supporting the family of the student. My day varies. There could be a day that I come in and what I'm dealing with all day is students with mental health issues. We have students that are in facilities that are not able to go to classes, and how can I still give them the hope and motivate them that the most important thing right now is taking care of your mental health. We can always worry about your academics after. So there is no typical day in a dean of students role because my job varies because every day, and the way I like to put it is every day there's always a fire to be put out. I have to determine which fire is a bigger blaze. Can I let it burn for a couple of days and not blow up, or is a fire to put out immediately? So my day varies because in my role, I deal with so many different stakeholders from students, families, parents to faculty, staff. In my role as a dean of students at my institution, I also oversee 8 different departments. So I'm not only dealing with students, I'm also supporting professionals in their role as well and making sure that their functional area and their department are meeting the needs of students. So there is no typical day. I'm in my role. Each day is actually surprising and is exciting because I don't know what I'm gonna get when I walk in the office Monday through Friday. I can't hear you, Cassie. Did you mute yourself? Hello? I see you, but I can't hear you. Still can't hear you, no. Can you hear me? Yeah, I can't hear you.
Can you? Oh, okay. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Can you
Okay.
hear me?
I can hear you. So I'm gonna just
Okay.
take my headphones out because I think that's probably the barrier.
Okay.
Okay, but you can hear me.
I can hear you clearly, correct.
Okay. So by hearing your response and everything that kind of goes on in your day-to-day life and how so unorthodox it is, I know that can be a very big task. I cannot even imagine being in your shoes doing all of those things, not just supporting faculty, but students, and not just academically, but emotionally and just anything of life that kind of comes to the students. That's something that you just have to carry on. So
Yes.
kudos to you. That is a huge responsibility, and it definitely takes a lot and a very strong and well-balanced individual to do that.
Thank
Um,
you.
so the next question I do have for you is, what inspired you to pursue a career in student affairs and higher education?
That's a great question. So people always ask me, why did I pick Eastern? And my response has always been Eastern picked me. So I was not the person in high school that got all the great grades. I did not do well my SATs. So when I went to college, it was strictly off of just faith and knowing that God had a purpose for my life. Because every university that I applied to in the state of Connecticut and other states, I was completely denied. I didn't have the grades or the SAT scores to get into college. So a little background, Eastern has a summer program called the Summer Transitional Program that's called Step Cap. It's a 6 weeks program that allows individuals to take summer courses and they earn a 2.4 or higher, they gain regular admissions into the college. So that's how I gained my admissions to a university. I was in the summer program, and being in the summer program made me realize that there was a different career path that's called higher education. Obviously, I successfully completed the summer program and got involved on campus. I was a summer orientation counselor. I was a resident assistant. I also was in clubs and organization. I did various internships in the career center and the disability services. So my involvement in higher education as an undergrad through internships made me create a passion and development for higher education, particularly student affairs and student success. I participate in the professional association that's called NASPA when I was a MUF mentor, which allowed undergraduate students to pair up with colleagues from different universities across the country and go off to training. So when I did that for one summer, I found my love for higher education, knowing that I can give back to students that are similar to me, that come from the same walk of life, who never saw higher education as an opportunity or an option, made me want to go into the field of student affairs. And when I think about student affairs, one of the things I tell folks that the academics is so important. I tell students all the time, you come to college to get a degree in a discipline, psychology, sociology, and so forth. But what you learn outside the classroom is what you're going to use towards your life. So those skills, those transferable skills, those critical thinking skills, being able to live with a roommate, being able to participate in clubs and organization, I knew that that career path was important to me as I developed young adults, and that just made me realize that is something that I wanted to do. So after I earned my bachelor's degree from Eastern, I went on and got a master's degree at Central in counseling and focus on student development and higher education, because I knew that that's the field I want to be in. Because at the age of 18, it's such an exciting time. But from 18 to 22 is also a huge transitional time and a transformative time for young adults. And if you're a first generation college student, or even if your parents went to college, it was doing a different time than when you are in college yourself. So being a pivotal example and a motivator and a role model for students in that role was a passion and something I just know I wanted to do. I wanted to wake up each day and go into a career where I knew I was making a difference in young people's lives.
Yeah, I think that's really amazing to be a trailblazer in that way, especially coming from a first generation household and just kind of like using that as your ammunition to be able to help people like yourself. I think that's where I definitely align with what I want to do moving forward when it comes to me going up the ladder as well in
Yeah.
education. So I think that that's great. Which leads me into my next question. Did your undergraduate or graduate experience influence, well, it like how in what ways when you were going through your undergraduate and graduate experiences did it really influence you towards the position that you are in today?
And that's a really great question. So when I look at my undergraduate experience, I would have never obtained a degree without my mentors, without the support of those that were in student affairs. Because again, I couldn't call home to mom, dad, uncle, and ask them, I'm at the bursar's office, what do I do? Because that language isn't familiar to those that didn't go to college. All your family can offer is prayer and support, which is awesome. But when you're on this college campus by yourself, you don't know what to do. So now you have to trust individuals. And for me, that I went to PWI both for undergrad and grad school, I now had to lean into strangers. And culturally, that was a clash because
Mhm.
I'm from a West Indian background, and what you're told is don't trust anyone, and you can do everything on your own. Just pray about it. Well, I had to deprogram that way of thinking because I wasn't gonna be able to be successful in that space that no longer required the thinking of what my mom has taught me my entire life. Don't ask any questions. Don't move. Don't reach out to anybody. Don't share anything. Don't be vulnerable. Being in that position, being an undergrad at a college that I knew nothing about, that it was an environment that no one in my family were familiar with, I then had to be vulnerable. And being vulnerable at a predominantly white institution is very different than the HBCU because no one looked like me.
Mhm.
My mentors in undergrad, I don't have anyone that can tell you that we're black. all my mentors were either white women or white males, and I had to lean in and trust people that looked different from me. That then inspired me and said, I have to get in this field because one, majority of our black students don't go to HBCUs. Majority of our black school students are at PWIs. So I knew I need to get myself in a position where students that came from homes like me, who were taught those type of narrative like me, needed to have someone that looked like me to lean into and trust. So my undergraduate experience absolutely motivated me and encouraged me to become an advocate, but not also an advocate, but a support system to students that didn't have that back home. So I see it when a student walks in my office, obviously my name gives away that I'm a black woman. Most students say, when I see Kamisha, I know you're a black woman. But the sense of relief a student look on their face when they come in the office and they see a black woman across from them, you see their shoulder drop down and a sigh of relief to know that the person they're talking to is not going to judge them, or the person they're talking to, they don't have to explain what it is coming from Hartford, New Haven, Bridgeport, because I walked that similar experience with them.
And I think that's so important, like, especially as well as coming from the same background, being at both PWIs and HBCUs, representation is so important.
Absolutely.
And so it's like it's much harder, even like with therapy. A lot of Black people are not prone to wanting to get therapy because a lot of the people that are in therapy beforehand, I feel like it's growing now, do
Yes.
not look like them. And so I think that doesn't motivate people who to go to therapy, nor motivate students when they don't see someone like themselves or have someone that has had the same experiences and persevered through and is even at the top of the food chain to be able to see like, okay, this person is here to help me, she can motivate me to be somewhere like where she is one day.
Yeah.
And I think just giving back is always the goal, especially within our community, because it's very hard to be vulnerable coming from a place such as Hartford or New Haven, because a lot of the times you come from backgrounds and family members who also say, don't trust nobody, keep everything a
Yes.
secret. And a lot of that could be to our hindrance. So
Absolutely.
hearing those things and just like the motivational factors that kind of put you within the position that you are in today, especially having to be vulnerable with people who don't look like you, that definitely are that definitely can be challenging and I commend you for being able to push through those things and be who you are today. Um, that's not an easy task at all.
It's not, and our students struggle, especially our BIPOC students who, like you said, are given the message, don't trust anyone. And the other part about it, to be completely honest, especially in today's political climate and what's happening in the United States, a lot of our brown and black kids are also told, don't trust anyone that don't look like you because of what we're seeing, that's happening with the political climate of the United States.
And it's very unfortunate. I feel like now like we are in a position where it can be harder and there's a lot of more separation amongst people. And so having representation and people within your level that look like you and myself, it's so huge for our
Absolutely.
community and students and the youth coming up. This also leads me to my next question, which is how do you balance like administrative responsibilities with direct student engagement?
There's days I don't know how I do it at all. But that's another good question. And one of the things that I do remind myself of, and it's important when you have a president of a university who reminds you that students are a focus. So when you ask that question about how I balance that, I have to remind myself the reason why I'm here are for the students. The students are the number one goal of the institution. And it's interesting because a lot of times I get a lot of back and forth with faculty because I am that liaison between faculty and student where a student is mistreated in a class, or if a student feel like a faculty member was unfair to them, or they just are frustrated, I'm the one that have to then get in the middle and have the conversation. And one of the things that I always tell the faculty is, without those students in the classroom, you're teaching no one. They're empty desks. I have to remind folks on campus that students are our number one priority. So a lot of folks in higher education don't like to hear the word that students are our customers. Students are our customers. Without them, there is no job. The person bursars have no bill to process. The person registrar have no schedules to create, and the faculty have no classes to teach. The housekeeping staff have no facilities to clean because there's no students there. So when I speak to everyone from top down or from bottom up, I remind them in every aspect, if you're the housekeeper or the person serving the meal in the cafeteria, they are your customer. Now, I don't mean take disrespect. I mean they are your customer. Asking a student if you're mopping the floor, how was your day? And one of the things about our housekeeper, because that's our expectation, they have relationships with our students, to down to the administrative staff. You're not there just to answer a phone. If a student comes in the office and they're wanting to meet with myself or the vice president, you ask the student how they're doing. So to go back to your question, how do I balance that? The student need comes first. The student has to be the number one priority for our institution. So and when I said, I'm not talking about a student that says I'm having a difficult time because I broke up with my boyfriend or I'm having a roommate conflict. It's really assessing what the student needs are at that time and determine if that's something that can wait for a later day, or you can refer the student to somebody else, or really realizing, okay, this administrative task. So, for example, the president says we need a report on the desk immediately. I have to make sure that's done immediately. But if a student comes in and say, I need you, I have to stop that report. And guess what? That's our work-life balance. That means when I get home on my laptop, I'm typing up that report and making sure it gets to the president by the next day. That also comes in with the administrative piece. Like I told you before, I supervise 8 student support spaces at campus. And one of the things that I also have to do with that is making sure that I support my staff so they can support the students as well. So whenever I speak with staff members, I always have to ask them, what does the student need? What are the students saying that their needs are, and how can we support that? Because again, at the end of the day, my job is to support the administrators that report to me, but is most importantly is around student success. So when we're talking about administrative role, my administrative role is always tied into what is the best interest of the student. For example, right now I'm on a retention think tank, and we're finding out at the institution that after the third year to the fourth year, our students are leaving. And in the meeting, everybody's like, maybe we should do this, maybe we should do that. And I stopped everyone in the meeting. It was myself, a group of faculty, some administrators, some of the academic deans. And I said, before we move any further in this conversation about what we're going to do for the students, we need a student's voice. We all, even though I'm an alum of the institution, when I went to Eastern, is a different Eastern from 20 something years ago. So we can't talk about fixing students' needs and students' issues when we don't know what the issues are. I said
Mhm.
it's time for us to create a focus group. And everyone looked around the room because faculty have a hard time with focus groups because they're numbers people. They don't necessarily want to hear the story. But I was like, in order for us to make changes at this institution, we need the students to tell us their story. And we had a focus group about 2 weeks ago. And one of the things I told the students before we started the focus group is, I don't want to hear how great Eastern is. I want you to tell me what we can do to improve the student experience. So as I think about my administrative role is to change policies and practices to improve the student experience. And if I can't do that in that role, that's not the job for me.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, that is definitely a huge task for one. And for two, I know not like I don't think everyone could be able to do what you do because a lot of the times, and mind you, I don't have that much experience within the workforce because I am going to grad school and I've only had very few experiences. But hearing from others and just seeing more as I get older and seeing the dynamics of a workspace within universities and even just small businesses around, you notice that a lot of people are really just trying to make it by. And a lot of the times because they're trying to make it by, they don't really care too much towards the job, especially when it regards dealing with other people, specifically students. And so having someone who has went to that university, has experienced it, even though it was a different time and a different type of environment, and to advocate for these students is very huge. And I know it can be difficult to kind of like balance that amongst the students and faculty because a lot of times the faculty do forget that these students are the customers
Absolutely.
and so it's just, I know that can be difficult sometimes to advocate because it's like they are also your colleagues in a sense,
Yes.
but it's like at the same time to bring the authenticity and to really make Eastern who it is and what they represent. Those difficult conversations are important. And
Yes.
so, yeah, I don't know how I could be able to do that. I think that is a very difficult task, especially being in a predominantly white institution
It
as a
is.
black woman. And a lot of people probably think that, knowing our community and knowing how America views our community, that a lot of the times they would underqualify us naturally, regardless of the amount of accolades that we have. So
Mhm.
so many barriers amongst that can also be a very difficult task. But You do it so gracefully. So kudos to
And
you with that.
and there are it's interesting you say that because one of the stakeholders that folks tend to forget the most in higher education are parents.
Hmm.
And I let folks know that when I went to college, my mom wasn't as involved, and I watched her in the transition with her granddaughter. She wants to be more present, but one of the things about having more involved and present parents, they also have very demanding expectations.
Absolutely.
And parents nowadays call a university way quicker than a parent did 20 years ago.
Mm,
And I have to balance that and making sure that the family know that I'm here to hear your needs and here to support you, but also making them understand that this is a collaborative relationship. Your job is your kid. Your job is this person you raised for the last 18, 19 years. My job is all the persons, all the thousands of students here on campus. So I have to make sure that I manage parents' expectation, but give them the space to air any concerns that they have and validate their feelings and still provide high value service to let them know they could trust their individual with us. Because I think a lot of times college administrators forget these parents are dropping their children off for the first time. I'm fortunate enough that a lot of our students are from in state, like from Connecticut, but there's
mhm.
other universities where majority of students are from out of the state or even out of the country. What can you do as an administrator to ensure that that parent feels safe that their child is there? And I think a lot of times administrators forget about that important stakeholder, which are the
Mhm.
parents.
Absolutely. And I think that probably happens at a lot of different universities, especially like at such as HBCUs or even Ivy League schools because of like them being more, I guess, known names like nationally or even internationally. So I know that like when it comes to probably in administratives, well, administration within those specific schools, that aspect is missing.
Yep.
And to be able to see you exemplify that by making sure there is a relationship between faculty and students and being the person that can join that by having the students and parents be heard to also administration and just as a whole within the community. I think that that's a very key and important aspect. I'm gonna pivot a little bit from my questions and kind of go more so into like the career outlook and like advancement. So another question that I do have is that like what would you say is like the typical pay range for someone entering this career path, and how do you think it'll grow over time with experience?
So it depends on the institution. So, what I mean by that, public first versus private, 2 year versus 4 year.
Mhm.
So a lot of private schools do pay a lot less. So, for example, I have looked at different dean of students or vice president's job. In the South, it's cheaper because of the cost of living. So this type of position you can see from anywhere from 80,000 to 200,000, depends on where you are in the institution. New England, Connecticut does pay really well in higher education. And as we talked about what it really looks like pay wise, it also goes off of your experience. So
Mhm.
someone that's going into a dean role who has years of experience of being a dean, you can negotiate that salary. But if you're starting off fresh and you get a dean job or an assistant or associate job, there's room for growth and there's room for getting more money. But like I said, the typical range is from 80,000 to almost 200,000, depends on where you live.
Okay, well. Okay, that's a good, pretty good outlook on it. I never really understood that. I know we've had conversations about it beforehand, but that does make a lot more sense, especially with like the value of education
Yeah.
and the regions within the United States. Um, and I have one more question because time is running out. So, um, let me see. Um, what like advice would you give to students who are considering a career in psychology or even student affairs?
I would say job shadow, and volunteer in places that you're interested in. And I think a lot of students don't understand the significant impact and volunteering and job shadowing someone. What you see on social media where somebody says about their career, you'll never know until you walk a mile in their shoe. And I think walking a mile in somebody else's shoe is a really great way of preparing you for your career. So
Mhm.
for any student that's going to psychology or going to student affairs, I would recommend that you volunteer a day with a dean or volunteer your day with a person in a position you want. And the most important part I would tell a student that's in my shoe to do is make sure you have people skill and you want to work with people. Because I
Mhm.
think a lot of time folks say, I want to be the dean of student, I want to be a psychologist, I want to be a therapist, and they don't like people. You're not going to be effective in your job if you're not about knowing people. And then the last advice I will give is education always continues. So I have the highest degree, I have a doctorate. So you may think you're done with schooling. No, that means I'm still going to continue to go into workshops and trainings and different academies. My career trajectory one day is to be a president of a university. So my next step is a vice president of student affairs or some type of vice president role. I have the doctorate, but a lot of those vice president roles come with academies and different academies that you needed to attend to learn more about the role. So I tell them further their education by continuing to be a part of academies, but most importantly, find a professional association that's tied to your career and start going there and network, network, network. Every single job that I have gotten is because of somebody I know. I've never gotten a job because I just randomly applied. It's always because I knew somebody that knew someone that got me here.
Mhm. Wow, that is some really great advice for a student like myself, especially in this transitional state of my life. But yeah, thank you so much. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
you taking the time out. I know it was
Yes.
a little last minute that I was asking you uh to have this interview, but I really appreciate you making the time.
Anything for you, Cassandra.
Yes.